Good afternoon.
Well, hello.
Well, hello.
Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good evening. We have a lot of people in different parts of time zones. Yeah. I guess, is it morning in Australia? Good morning.
I think so. Anyone from Australia on the chat?
I thought I saw one. There was a reference to animals I didn't recognize, and then it was explained that it was Australia, which I appreciated. Drop bears and hoop snakes. I feel like I could have guessed Australia, but luckily I didn't have to. How are you guys?
Good. How you been?
I'm good. I'm good. I've got my dog under my arm, if anyone's wondering what's moving underneath me. I'm dressed the same as her chew toy. I'm only just noticing that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Conveniently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dogs don't run the house like cats do. Cats, you know, much more stuff going on cerebrally. They like
cats intimidate me. I can't handle the power dynamics.
Yeah, like dogs are way more labor intensive than cats. Cats just do their own thing.
Yeah.
Just throw some food down every now and then and they're fine.
Yeah. But
dogs are like constant attention. They want my dogs constant attention.
So I recently I saw a video. This cracks me up. So this guy decides, hey, he ended up buying like this really small camera and he puts it on his cat's collar.
Oh yes.
He's curious what his cat is doing out there. So taking days and days of video, and it turns out that his cat is the neighborhood asshole. Right? And this cat is terrorizing all the other cats in the neighborhood. And it's like the same thing every time. Like the cat runs up to the other cat, then the cat's intimidated and kind of lowers itself, and then they yell at each other for a little while.
The cat's saying, "Can you get this camera off of me?"
Yeah.
And then the aggressive cat tackles the other cat, and the other cat runs away, and he chases and typically doesn't find them.
Wow.
And I think it's hysterical. Like, you're like, oh, I love my cat. You're like, my cat is a jerk.
And you had no idea, or whoever this was had no idea, because the cat just goes out and you're like, oh,
well, yeah, that's why outdoor cats are a problem. They're also really slaughtering tons of birds.
Yeah. We had a cat when I was growing up, and he would come. We were in suburbs, but he would go outside and he would come back with just birds and squirrels and rabbits and mice. A mouse was like a pleasant, like, oh, only a mouse. Like, oh, that's great. It was brutal stuff.
My predators.
My dog once jumped on a pigeon and she got it, which made me think the pigeon was sick, which made me much more nervous than if she hadn't gotten it for that reason. But
my dog has managed to kill chipmunks because chipmunks go to ground and he can dig them out.
Oh my God.
Wow.
He can't get anything that goes up trees or anything, but the chipmunk stupidly will go to ground and he gets them and kills them.
Ooh. Mine, luckily, I think haven't figured that out, or there are no chipmunks in New York City. That could be. But the squirrels in trees, they're just obsessed with, and the squirrels just sit there and stare.
Yeah. They have no chance. No chance to catch a squirrel.
Have you guys ever seen videos where people put like a mask on their cat? I saw a guy put a Batman like helmet mask on the cat. You know, of course, the cat doesn't like it, but the cat kind of just stands there with this really intense look on his face because he's like, you know, cat obviously isn't happy, but it's pretty cool.
Wow. I missed an opportunity. So I have 2 dogs, and they look like They both look like this one. And last year for Halloween was my first Halloween with them, and I really was excited. They're twins. I wanted to dress them up like Cersei and Jaime Lannister, but I'm not organized. And also, I feel like it's like slightly of an incestual joke, so I was like, maybe not. But I was pleased with the idea, and so maybe this year I will do something for Halloween. My dog.
Like you put a costume on them.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Very good.
That's good.
Never been able to get a costume on an animal.
The thing I was talking about, Ian, was like a headpiece.
Oh, a headpiece. Either way, the intensity of the look.
Do Bob's Halloween things, does he involve animals in his display?
No animals are harmed.
No animals are harmed. Good.
No, his Halloween thing is starting tonight, right? They've been building it for the last couple of months.
Oh, wow, tonight.
Yeah, I talked with him, and he wanted me and my daughter to come.
Yeah.
But my daughter has plans tonight because her social life is better than mine.
Wow. Better than mine too. My plans are to hang out with my dog. Wow.
We should plan a Friday live there, maybe.
Yeah, I would do that. That would be a lot of fun.
Convince Bob.
Next weekend's the only weekend, right?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's the only weekend? Oh.
Yep.
Well,
because after next weekend, we're going to be at SciCon.
Oh.
And then I'm going to be in Dubai.
Right.
I just finished my 12-hour seminar I had to write for that.
You're doing 12 hours? Wow.
12 hours.
How long does that take, Steve?
12 hours.
Now, how long does it take to write it?
I mean, I've been writing it for weeks, but it's mostly recycled material. Obviously, it's like Skepticism 101 kind of stuff. So, but I have to, it's a lot of new material, a lot of updated references, updated images and everything. And it's just, I have to reorganize it into this seminar. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's amazing how quick the time goes, because basically 3 4-hour sessions broken up into 4, roughly 1 hour segments. So it's basically, 12 1-hour chunks that I'm writing, and they fill up quick, man. It's not that much time to talk about all the stuff that we have to talk about. When you think,
do you have a sense of the backgrounds of the students / audience? Like, are they familiar with skepticism?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm assuming they're completely naive, but they have no idea.
Well, I guess you kind of have to, without him giving you that information, you have to be ready to dumb it down, right?
I mean, from what I understand, so this is the first year of this conference. This year, it's like it's not open to the public. There are sections of it that are open to the public, but it's invitation and free. And basically, it's going to be a bunch of like CEOs and muckety mucks that they're trying to get involved at this conference. I have no idea who's going to be in my audience, is the bottom line. So I'm prepared for anything.
It's cool that you're going. Have you been to Dubai before?
Never.
Okay. Jay,
have you been there?
No, I know quite a bit about it because I was very curious about the whole thing. I mean, I remember back when they were making bringing up the sand and like making more landmass.
Yeah.
And I was very curious about that because it's a pretty, intense thing that they were doing. And I don't think I've ever seen it or heard of that before. And then I just started reading about the city, and, they're doing something. They have like these tentative plans, I think, for something called the wall. Have you heard about this thing?
The line, I think.
The line, yeah.
Show up, see if you could get the video or the picture. So I don't know if they're going to do it, but it is pretty unbelievable concept, the city concept, where
oh my god, the first person on
it is encased in basically like this giant line, right? And it's like a giant rectangle, like a monolith on its side.
Yeah.
And then the city's inside of it. So I don't know how wide it is. I think it would be like, like a few 100 feet wide or something along those lines. And then it has internal transportation. There would be neighborhoods in there that would go along the way. And it's supposed to be, eco-friendly and, all the good things.
It looks like from the promo video or whatever speech that when they unveiled it, it looks like something from The Expanse. Like that the whoever the people are who are living in the middle.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoops. Hold on. There you go.
Have they started it?
Michio Kaku is the first.
Is anyone breaking ground?
No,
or is this
it's all it's ideas.
It's a money raising thing.
The weird thing is you can't get straight answers. Like I saw bulldozing pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
You're saying they've broken ground on it?
That's
whatever that means.
But I don't know what the truth is, Steve. You know, like you look at this thing and it's like it looks like a science fiction novel. You know, I don't know where they'd get the resources. It is probably, if they're going to do it, it's probably going to be the biggest build project ever.
Yeah.
I mean, they're printing money, right?
Well, and it's
I mean, there's a lot of money floating around Dubai.
Yes, there is.
They're safe.
I mean, it's one of those where it's like it could be. I'm curious what you guys think. Like, it could be eco-friendly. Like once it's done and in place, and you build it in a way that's reflects heat and does all these cool things with the latest technology. But surely the process of putting it into place is going to be a continuation of like building all the stadiums for the World Cup in Qatar, in Doha, right? Where it's like someone in the chat mentioned like there's a lot of slave labor and then a lot of pollution and whatever goes into building these sorts of things and the money going to that as opposed to other things. But
and I would imagine, it would be like a continuous work in progress where they would, they'd finish a neighborhood, people move in, and then they just start building the next one and the next one, and I can't, in my head, I can't wrap my head around whether this thing would be a nightmare or really cool, Yeah.
I spent a week in Dubai, which obviously is not the same thing as this crazy building, but I was there on a layover. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but Emirates used to do a thing to promote tourism to Dubai, where if you were flying through there on a layover, you could extend your trip for like no cost. And I was in grad school and miserable, and I was like, I'm gonna spend a week in Dubai and like remind myself what I'm doing in life. And it was fun for about 36 hours. And then after that, you're just, maybe I just did it wrong, but you're just kind of living in Steve, I'm really curious what you think. It's kind of one shopping mall after another. It's so hot and unlivable. And it's not walkable in any way, at least when I was there.
I probably won't leave the hotel. I mean, seriously, I'm flying in on Monday. I have seminars Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm flying out on Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have any time.
This is my daughter.
Really.
Hi. Your daughter with the great social life. Hi there.
Yeah. You see this thing that she's wearing? I bought this for my wife when I went to Sweden. The last time I went to Sweden, I bought this thing, right? And I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And when I brought it home, this was a long time ago. I bring it back, give it to her. She's like, Jay, this would fit a child. Like I had no perspective.
And it does.
I didn't know. Yeah. So and she's wearing it. So it's.
Oh, you got it for Courtney?
I bought it for Courtney many years ago.
I know, it's cool. Well done.
All right. So can I help you?
I want to say hi.
All right. You can say hi, but then you got to go because everybody needs to.
Hey, you punk.
Hi.
Uncle Steve said hi. Andrea
What's
said
up?
No Uncle Steve song, huh?
No, I don't get a song.
Uncle Steve. All right, you need to go.
Wait.
But
Bye-bye.
no, it's not.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye.
Or
Hi,
he is
Steve.
changing.
By the way, we're watching you downstairs on the TV.
Oh, are you? That's nice.
Ooh.
And I heard everything you said.
I didn't say anything about you. Get out of here.
You did. You saw it. Oh,
Kelly's asking the good questions in the chat. Is Olivia coming back to Nauticon?
oh,
Yes,
yeah.
she'll be there. She wants to continue her podcast.
Yes, her podcast.
I was going to say, the last time I saw Olivia, I was interviewed thoroughly as part of her podcast.
Yeah.
I think everyone was cleaning up and doing all this work, and I was just sitting there and answering questions about like my favorite color and favorite food, which are harder questions than I was prepared for. I have to say.
She's a really tough interviewer.
Yeah, she wasn't pulling any punches, I don't think. So she could moderate the presidential debate. Actually, that would be a huge improvement if we had
I would think
moderate
so.
the debates.
Yeah,
Are our polls any good? Are they worth it?
it's crazy when you live with kids and they're getting older and they become more sophisticated and they start to surprise you with what they actually have picked up, because they pick up way more than you talk to them about.
Yeah.
Dramatically more. And like I was telling her, I'm like, you and I didn't have conversations like this 2 years ago. We didn't talk like this to each other. Like we couldn't talk about cool stuff. It was all baby stuff. It's really, really awesome because like now I know who she is.
Yeah.
I fully my head is wrapped around like what kind of person she is and everything. And it's really awesome, especially when you really like the person. You know what I mean? You're very different.
As opposed to like, oh gosh, how old is she now?
She's 9. She just turned 9.
Okay. I don't have any concepts of when children become the people they are. Is 9 about right for?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. They're in some ways they are that person when they're born. You know what I mean? Like there are certain deep personality traits that you notice even when they're toddlers. You know, they're even babies sometimes, depending on what you're talking about. And then that matures into a full, more rounded person. But that core personality is always there.
Yeah.
I mean, Olivia's always been a goofball.
Is that so, Olivia?
Olivia, you a goofball?
Uncle Steve wants to know if you're a goofball.
Sometimes I can be.
Yeah, she's a goofball, all right.
And I'm still hearing everything.
All right, Liv.
Bye.
Liv.
Bye again.
Your friend's dad might call on that phone, so pick up the phone.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I'll just say this is Olivia.
Yeah, that's better than saying you're Frank. Yeah. See ya.
Ben's daughter is 3 and a real person. Yeah, I don't know how children work. I guess, yeah, as Steve said, you can have a personality from the beginning. I'm not around children enough to understand.
Yeah.
Those things.
I think what happens is as they're slowly changing and everything, like you're constantly playing catch up with who they are.
Okay.
Right. That becomes super obvious, like because especially when they go to school and the socializing happens, and then it's just there is no consistency because it really is changing often enough where you're like you could see it and feel it.
They're becoming more complicated versions of themselves.
Interesting.
But it's not like they're not changing their fundamental personality. It's just getting deeper and more complicated,
right?
And more nuanced and more layered, and their world is getting more complicated. But it is, like I could see the 2-year-old in my 25-year-old daughter. You know what I mean? Like,
wow. Okay.
It's in a weird way. You know what I mean? It's because I do think those core personality traits are hardwired. You're basically born with them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of like your orientation towards the world and like
the big one's like how introverted versus extroverted you are. You know, that's just there. That's just that's the way your brain works.
Andrew, what do you got going on now? Like, this is what I'm hearing on the street.
What are you hearing on the street, Jay? What rumors abound?
You've got polls on the brain.
I've got polls on the brain. I am,
and what's
as you know from your last episode.
I thought polls were worthless.
They are pretty worthless. They are pretty worthless, but we have them, and so I'm trying to think about what to do with them, given that we have them. I am doing a bunch of shows in New York City about. It's called How to Win an Election. And it's about various aspects of social and data and political science around things related to the election. So Sunday, we have a show about polls. I have a colleague from 538 coming, and we're going to talk about where polls come from and how they're entered into these aggregators, not forecasts, but aggregators.
Yeah.
I have a professor of history coming on. He's talking about something called the Bradley effect. Do you guys know the Bradley effect?
Never heard of it.
I hadn't either. And I used to make a living with polls, but apparently the Bradley effect was this idea that if you're polling citizens about who they're going to vote for in the next election, and one candidate is white and one candidate is not white, most of the research is around black candidates, but some has been other non-white candidates. The story was, and this was a few decades ago, that a systematic bias you could look for in poll responses is that white people will say they're going to vote for the black candidate because that's the socially desirable thing to say, or they'll say they're undecided, when in reality, they're going to show up at the polls and vote for the white candidate. And that was based on someone running for office, I think in California, whose last name was Bradley. That was pretty much taken to be the law. So anytime we'd look at polls, we'd say, gosh, okay, probably white people are not representing accurately who they're going to vote for. And then when Obama was elected, everyone was like, well, maybe that's out the window. So now we have a historian coming on who knows more about this than I do to talk about whether or not that's still something that we should be thinking about ahead of, with Kamala running versus.
And is there a similar effect for women?
Exactly. Yeah. But then we saw the opposite in 2016 with like the shy Trump voters. So part of this, and this gets back to this idea that can we learn anything from these, is we're trying to play this kind of like whack-a-mole with people's biases and people's, channeling social desirability bias showing up in different ways. And so in 2016, the social desirability bias might have been, oh, don't say you're going to vote for Trump, but secretly go vote for Trump. This year, maybe it's showing up somewhat differently. But if it was the same every time, then we would know things. But
is
then
it
we-
like the generals say we're always fighting the last war?
exactly.
You're always polling the last election.
Exactly.
Kind
and
of,
correcting from like, oh, we missed all the, highly educated white women in 2016. And so we're still maybe overcounting that, or we're undercounting. A lot of, machine learning, as you know, is based on that as well, where it's like all we can do is train based on the past. And in some cases that could be really helpful. And for regular, market movements, fine. But that doesn't take into account big events. But again, this is the idea that elections happen so rarely, and you could argue are so very different, that the data generating processes each time are like totally, you can't learn from the past in the way that you would think you could about previous social,
Now, my hypothesis this time around, I don't think this is true every time. You tell me what you think about this, Andrea, is that the polls, like asking the question, what percentage of people plan on voting one way or the other, is insignificant. Like that variance is insignificant compared to the other variable, which is like how many people are going to actually get out there and vote.
Exactly.
Yeah, like the mobilization factor may be an order of magnitude greater than just like who would you, if you were forced to vote for somebody, who would it be? Right.
And this gets back to the conversation we had on the main episode about, forecasts versus polls. And it's like the forecasts are trying to build that in, like how many people are going to turn out, build it, how many people turned out last time, what's the enthusiasm, all that kind of stuff. And you get so many variables that it becomes very, very hard to say. But I think you're right that right now the noise, as far as the actual kind of snapshots of the polls, the noise, sure, I think that number is, polls are trying to do a good job and people are trying to figure out what's going on. And so it probably is roughly representative of, within a pretty large margin of error, what the divide. But you're right. It's going to come down to, it doesn't matter. It's going to come down to who shows up. So one of the shows we did last week, I'm going to post some clips from it soon, was about how to get out the vote and what the research suggests around that. And basically in the United States, I mean, this is obviously an oversimplification, but maybe you both already knew this. I was surprised to hear from some political scientists I brought on the show. It's registration in the United States through and through. And the gap between it's, something like 60% of voting eligible population in the US votes, but 90% of registered voters vote. So it's this getting non-registered voters registered is the big thing. And, we have a lot of people watching from other countries, and I would be curious if voter registration just seems ludicrous to them.
Yeah.
This seems ludicrous to me. This year I'm doing I don't know if you guys have ever done this. I'm training to be a polls worker. I decided I should actually do something rather than sit around and complain, which is what I'm really good at. So yesterday I went for a 4-hour training to be a polls worker, and most of the work is setting up the equipment. That's all computers from the 90s. Which is kind of fun to play with, and turning it off and different keys. It's cool. And it was actually very interesting to see. It would be hard to steal an election given how well documented and bureaucratic and clunky all of this is, at least in New York. But the main training for when you're checking in voters is how to handle voters who have been removed from the voting rolls, who have moved and haven't updated, and the different, types of, not real ballots, the affidavits or whatever that you get. And it's just so complicated. Like I study politics for a living, and I don't actually know where my polling place is in November. And so it's just, it's, I don't know. We've made it
harder
so
than it should
somehow.
be. Yeah, it's harder than it should be. So, but Andrea, do you say polls worker because poll worker sounds like a stripper?
Yeah, I guess so. Although I will only be working at one poll. Maybe
but at the polls.
Yeah. It came on my radar from an ad on the subway. I'll have to go back and see what it said. Like what polling, work the polls. That's not good either. Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of questions.
Please.
So things that I hear people say that I don't know how true it is, like one of them is like they only call people on their landlines and not their cell phones. Is that correct?
That's been updating, but slowly. And
that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So, one hypothesis is, and I'm, at the risk of betraying my own, revealing my own politics, one hypothesis is we're not polling young people at all in these in this round, because think of all of Gen Z who's now old enough to vote. I mean, no one, even if you are calling their cell phone, are you going to answer your cell phone?
No.
No.
Now Now, I would answer it if they were able to do something where it identified as a formal poll.
Right.
You know, like I'd be like, fine, I would answer a poll. It probably only takes a few minutes or whatever.
I once answered, and I was a participant in a Pew Research poll, and it ended up taking like half an hour. And I was like, I wouldn't have stayed on this if I didn't think it was extremely cool to be doing it. You know, like it was informative for me. But it was also after they asked the first 3 questions about your views on like a handful of issues, this was more about issues and policy rather than candidates. But then it was like, what do you think about abortion? What do you think about guns? What do you think about climate change? What do you think? And I was just like, all of my answers must be so predictable. Like, who are the people? Like, by the end, I was like, you could probably guess what my answers are going to be, just because of the way that we've, partisan sorting in the U.S. is there's very few people with views that cross both sides. And so I sort of felt like
they have to ask.
But still,
yeah. But I was like, I kind of wished I were more surprising.
From what I'm reading, the Democrats are outspending the Republicans on the ground game by a huge margin. And is the ground game basically what determines registration?
I think
do we have hard numbers on registration and how that's going?
I don't know the hard numbers. I think one of the issues is it's very different state by state.
Yeah.
I would imagine all of the work is on just the swing states. So that's the other thing about the Electoral College in the US is that all the work ends up, there is no ground game, I think, in California, as far as I can tell, for the presidential election.
Because why would they bother?
Why would you bother?
It's all the swing states. Yeah.
My concern, and this is more as a person who's tried to do some of these, like, I'll do a phone bank, I'll send letters to undecided voters, is everyone I know in Pennsylvania, which admittedly is not that many people, are saying that they're getting like 800 calls a day and people knocking on their doors to remind them to vote. And I just have this feeling that we just keep reaching the same people. It's if you're not registered to vote, you're probably not involved in campaigns. Your number and phone number is probably not on any lists that campaigns are targeting, and those are the people you need to target.
I mean, because I guess in that regard, like, if we just say, hey, they're only calling landlines, they're barely getting into cell phones, people don't pick up their cell phones anyway, then you got to do like a demographic on who the hell is picking up the phone.
Right.
Right. I try to be as unbiased as I can about politicians and all this stuff. It's hard to be this time around in particular, just because, there in my estimation, there is such a giant swath between reality and non-reality here. Like I just, I can't, I embrace my bias here. But that's a big problem, because my gut tells me, Trump lost last time. Where are all these new voters coming from that could let him win? When he just keeps to continuously, Steve doesn't like what I'm saying. He's just continuously turning off more and more people. And I'm like, I try to think about it, and I think I need more of your brain, Andrea, to do it, because I'm like,
if I knew it, I would be
where
telling
could these
everyone.
people?
Well, I think he's getting a get out the base strategy.
Right. And he's doing it, unfortunately, effectively. The biggest motivator, and maybe we've talked about this before, the biggest motivator politically is typically fear. It can vary depending on the context.
And anger.
Fear and anger.
Yeah.
The Harris campaign made a big move going for politics of joy during the DNC. I'm intrigued by it, and I'm optimistic. And frankly, as a human, I'm kind of find it refreshing, even if it doesn't totally feel like I don't see the joy, but I like that's the angle. There is some work that showed that, the Obama campaign, the hope, yes, we can, really helped. But it's one of those where, again, it's like we have elections so infrequently. Was it Obama, or was it the fact that he was basing it on hope? So there is research that suggests that hope can help, but fear and anger for sure. And it's going to be an activation game on that front. And people are just, especially after the big lie in 2020, it's just.
The thing is, I think I'm hoping it's a smart strategy, and I think it might be because Trump is scaring the other side all by himself.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing anyone can say that is scarier than all the stuff Trump is saying and doing and Project 2025. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like could you be more scared? Like if you're not in the Trump cult or Trump orbit.
Right.
If you're the kind of person who would be scared by Trump, you were already terrified.
Right.
And let's be honest here, guys. fear and anger are basically halfway to becoming, dark force user.
Yeah.
Which basically makes Trump Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to acknowledge this because it's happening right before our eyes. It's how long is it going to be before he blows up a planet? You know what I mean?
I mean, with Elon's new support, maybe sooner than we think. To blow up Mars.
All right, so let's switch topic.
There it is. Wait, before we do that, there's one question I saw in the chat also. Have you heard anything about low propensity or higher turnout now maybe favoring Republicans more than it strategically has favored Democrats in history?
I hadn't heard that, but I'm pessimistic enough to believe just hearing that. I'm like, well, it's over.
Apparently that is a new trend that some pollsters are finding.
I see.
Low information voters are more affected by like the feelings of how it's affecting my family, the economy, and therefore lean a little more Trump because they blame Biden or Harris now.
Well, then you go back to the two predictors are one, what do people say they're going to do? Or two, what's actually going on in the world? So things like the fundamentals, like the economy. And I think the economy, there's the economy, and then there's the way that we talk about the economy. And I think that it's very striking how different Republicans, anything goes wrong, it's like, well, it's the Democrats, it's immigration, it's the economy, and they're messing it up. So if you're a low information voter, these little sound bites are going to be very catchy to you, I think, and you might be swayed. And prices have gone up, and there are things. A lot of it's silly because the economy is largely out of the president's hand. But
yeah. This experience, talking to people online, some people I know, some people I don't know, it's remarkable to see it in action. Right, all the things that I learned in skepticism.
Yeah.
Motivated reasoning and, the total lack of understanding of logical thinking. I mean, just a blatant and flagrant, absolute void of understanding logic of any kind.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how powerful it really is. I've seen it. We've been around this block a million times and we've talked to thousands of people, but to see it like this and at this intensity with this much reality being compromised, the fact that people are now thinking that the U.S. government can literally control the weather,
right?
Like without there's no red flag that goes, holy shit, that can't be. It doesn't.
And they're doubling down on that.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, man, she's like that's her thing right now. Like that, I feel like it's scary because it shows you how dangerous human thinking can be.
Yeah.
And it shows you to what depth it can sink to and how impossible it is to deal with.
I really think that the minute Trump started using the phrase fake news in his campaign in 2016, to me, that was the death knell of any tether to reality. Because the minute you can say that some piece of information, not that everything the news prints is 100% true, but it's anytime you can dismiss something you don't like because you don't agree with it and you can say it's wrong, it's like, skepticism 101. It's motivated reasoning until the end of time. And that's, I don't know. I mean, the part that scares me the most, a lot scares me, but it's the loss of an agreement on reality and a willingness to admit that you're wrong or that you're getting just a small sliver of the truth. And it's just, Steve, can you give your class to everyone instead of just the Dubai people? I don't know if you want to give
I'd be happy to. How can you make that happen?
You have to fly
call the
to
White
Dubai.
House. But even then, we'd have to get you somehow on. I was thinking the other day about how you keep, how Joe Rogan refuses to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like, God, we got to get Steve on Joe Rogan.
He's scared.
He's scared.
Yeah.
It's easier to not have a contentious interview.
So, I guess, my to make a circle out of my point is, my God, does the public need critical thinking skills? It really, education, of course, is like almost at the tip top of my list, but I think critical thinking, it has to go hand in hand with education. But the lack of it literally makes it so you can't communicate.
Right.
You just can't speak in a manner that people are going to be able to understand and be able to accept. And a lot of it is emotion based. It's not just a lack of logic, but it really is like this powerful needs and emotions that are behind all of this that we're seeing. When you see people interviewed and they're like, they're just like drunk, what I mean? They're like drunk on this thing that's happening, and I'm like, hey, if Harris does a good job, great. I mean, I'm not I'm not putting her face in my yard.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah, she could be really good, but I mean, I'm just not going to allow myself to really like a politician. I'm always going to have my guard up. I don't give a shit who it is.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
think that's smart.
that's the way to do it, because if you start buying into the cult of personality, you start buying into the brand, then your reality, you are becoming reality compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I found it very liberating, and this happened a long time ago when I essentially decided I do not adhere to any political party. I'm not a member, like ideologically, of any political party. I'm just an independent.
Right.
It's incredibly liberating. It's incredibly liberating because it gets rid of all of that tribalism of like I have to defend my team, or I like any of my identity is tied to defending some ridiculous thing that a member of my team said.
Right.
You could call everybody an idiot, right? Because they basically are. And I remember there was more than one conservative pundit, whose articles I read on a regular basis, who after they became basically a never Trumper and then essentially left the Republican Party. They like one guy, I think it was Max, whatever his name is, wrote an article like saying how liberating it was. The same thing. It's like, oh my God, I could finally just say whatever the hell I think and not have to defend a team.
Right.
And it's like I'm a much better journalist than I was before this. I was just really forced out of the Republican Party.
Yeah, I mean, skepticism, like there's a neutrality cooked into it.
Yeah.
Right. It's the unbiased. It's alleviating yourself of our biases and belonging to a political party. It's a major bias. Liking a politician is a major
not that
bias.
big. It's not that big.
It's the one by your
Don't
left.
go around telling people that, because that's just embarrassing.
No, other side.
But there's only one camera.
Right there.
It's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that.
It's
it's blocking your samurai sword. That's why they're mad.
Steve can't. Yeah, Steve's
all
out.
right. That did.
There we go.
And the other frustrating thing is, I think about a week before I die, I'll have basically accomplished like getting rid of all my bias.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
on your Max Boot, on your deathbed.
Yeah, you'll receive total consciousness. Oh my God, Steve, that phrase finally makes sense to me. Oh my God, that's brilliant. That's from Caddyshack, by the way.
Yeah, I don't even know that, and I've watched Caddyshack so many times.
But here's a question for you both, and Ian and the chat. Here's a question for the whole world. How do I endeavor to apply skepticism to everything that I'm evaluating, learning, thinking about in the world? I know that I'm biased. Like, how can I ever get to a point? And I guess the answer is no. Like any complicated issue, there is no true unbiased. So how do I not just say? I feel like the problem with trying to sell critical thinking is that people want something to believe in, and we're saying you can't really believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not true.
Humility is important.
This is the hardest communication job that we have as skeptics, is that problem that you're having right there.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, we're like, you should have a certain amount of confidence in experts and expertise and the scientific method and consensus of expert opinion and scientific opinion. And it's better than the pseudoscientists and the blah, blah, blah. On the other hand, we're saying at the same time, it's all a layer of bullshit, and you got to be skeptical of all of it, and all of it's flawed. It's like, yes, it's all flawed, it's all compromised, it's all biased, but some of it is less than others.
Yeah.
And some of it is better and more reliable than others. And we can come to conclusions. There's no metaphysical certitude, right? You have to be comfortable with uncertainty, comfortable, with partial answers and incomplete answers, comfortable with doubt, all of that. But we could still say, evolution's real.
Right.
We evolved. The evidence is overwhelming enough that it would be, as I think it was Stephen Jay Gould said, it would be perverse to withhold temporary assent. Like to be perverse to at least not say, yeah, this is like probably true, to the point where I'm going to act like it's true.
Right.
Steve, but there are lots of things. There's a shitload of things that are in that category right there, because like we know that when an engineer creates a jet engine, that the jet engine works. You know what I mean? Like science continues to prove itself.
No, we can get to very high levels of reliability.
Yeah.
Right.
Like one of my favorite examples perennially is just like, based upon our understanding of physics and mathematics, we built a rocket and we sent a camera to fucking Pluto.
Yeah.
I know how far that is. We know how accurate that had to have been.
Yeah.
I think it was likened to sinking a 10-mile putt. Like that's how accurate
Yeah.
you would have to be. Like that, right? That would not have happened. We would not have gotten back gorgeous pictures, close-up pictures of Pluto, if a lot of what we thought about the universe wasn't in fact true.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of things, not only about physics, chemistry, rocketry,
Of course,
all
Steve,
the many things that go into that.
Absolutely.
And there's hundreds of those examples, thousands of those
course,
examples.
yeah. I mean, we're silly with it at this point. We live in a technological age, right? And I was just having discussions online. I put a quote up. I don't know. I came up with this quote. It's pretty basic. It basically says, "Belief without evidence is fantasy," right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very simple. And I just put it out there. I wanted to see what people's reaction to it. So I get this dude, and he's not happy with that at all. And he basically like twists what I said to being like, this is absurd. Like, you don't think that basically he says like, don't you instinctively know that you shouldn't throw rocks at people's heads? And I'm like, this quote has nothing to do with like societal norms and morals and things. This quote obviously has everything to do with believing in things that don't have evidence.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So, we have evidence. Science continues to prove itself, and things get sharper and more accurate, and new fields of science come around. Like, so yeah, like, is the word belief okay? Yeah, sure. You could say you believe in science. It's not a evidence-free belief. Like other beliefs people have. People believe in religions that there is no evidence. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're not even in the same ballpark. They're not even speaking the same language. It's two completely different things. And with that certainty that we have that science functions, and we do lots of things every day to trust it. We trust the brakes on our car. We trust that the water we're drinking is not poisoned with blah 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 blah. You just come up with a million things. Living in that world, I think, to answer your question, you want to be able to get yourself to the point where anything that you currently believe, you could change your mind with new evidence.
That's good.
That's a litmus test. Yeah. And I have things like Bob and I are techno files, right? We think that the future, we like to pretend that technology is going to advance quicker than it does. It feels good and it's fun for us, right? And I catch myself sometimes being a little bit like, oh no, that's not going to be 10 years. That's going to be 50 years, Mm-hmm. That's not that big of a deal because nobody's going to die with me saying that. You know what I mean? But, there are lots of examples where, do I have a sacred cow? Do I? Yeah, the answer is absolutely. We stumble on them as we do the show.
Yeah.
And we talk to each other about it. Less now than ever. If we went back 20 years, I mean, we all had our heads up our asses except Steve. It took a long time to learn this shit. It took way too long, as a matter of fact. It's hard.
It's hard. There's nothing easy about it. And you're never there. It's a lifelong process. Right. We're just trying to get progressively less wrong. As we say, you're never right. You're never done. You never arrive at the truth. It's just an endless process of refining, your internal model of the universe, and trying to make it a little bit better. We do that individually. We do it collectively as a species. And you get to the notion of like, why do we trust in science? The other layer I want to throw in here, it's like, it's not like we made this shit up. This is we're at the tail end of a 2,000-year conversation that the most intelligent, thoughtful human beings to ever live have been having continuously. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like
it would have broken down if it wasn't.
Yeah, smart people have thought about this for 2,000 fucking years.
Yeah,
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If anything you could think of has already been digested and broken down and argued about at book length forever. I mean, endlessly.
Right.
So
pretty much any topic.
Pretty much anything, but including like, how do we know shit? Just that basic fundamental thing.
But you want to like have something happen. Like, let me give you a great example. Like this, you want to see like my humility in action.
Let's go.
I get into an argument with my wife. And
good start.
She tells me all this stuff about me and my reaction and what I said and my train of thought and everything. And then it takes me a couple of days of turning it over in my head. And I'm like, I was wrong. Like because she is my ego police. She observes my bullshit just like I observe hers. But it's unbelievable when you have somebody like, I'm making these logical and emotional mistakes over and over and over again, because we're freaking human.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like and you're never going to get rid of that. You're never going to actually change much. That's the scary part.
Right. These biases, they are with us when we're born, or they're there when we're 2 p.m. or are 2 p.m. 2 years old.
There are some intrinsic human biases, like heuristics and things about the way our brains work, and then there's ones that are learned, that are cultural, that are right. It's just baked into the view of the world that you grow up in, and you don't challenge it.
Right.
No one's challenging it. No one's questioning it. It's just,
but
like,
take it. Everyone knows it.
It's wonderful when you look back on who you used to be, and you're still, the core is usually the same, right? For the most part. I mean, there's people that are not going to fit this, but I mean, for the most part, like there's parts of me where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm the same kid I was when I was a teenager. Sometimes, like, I know that there's a lot more going on in my head now than back then. But there's so many things that are the same. And as we grow older and everything, and I'm starting to see myself kind of turn into an older man now, like I'm old age is not far from me, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, I see my attitude changing towards things. I see my perspective changing towards things. This is all age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am not in a young body anymore.
Well, you get perspective.
Yeah, it's true, but
plus,
I think part of it is
there's also neurological changes that occur as we get older, and so people actually they think in a more sophisticated, nuanced way as they get older. As a general rule of thumb, statistically speaking, I don't think everybody does, but we get more and more complicated thought processes going on. Well, I think we tend to we get more emotionally stable. We get generally happier. People are more content and more happy as they get older.
Right.
I think we learn not to worry about shit, that doesn't matter, which is a huge, burden that you take off yourself when you realize most of the shit you worry about doesn't matter.
Yep.
And when I find myself, like, when I'm talking to my daughters or their generation and feeling the need to impart some wisdom, on them, it's mostly in the form of, you don't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
This is not a big deal. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
This is not the thing you need to worry about.
Because it feels huge in the moment, and it's living.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And think about how hard that programming is. I mean, counseling a young person on this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
Because we see the arc of our life with more perspective, and we realize that that's not the zig or the zag that's going to make or break your life. You're going to be fine.
I mean, I don't have children, and I don't really interact with young people as established by the fact that I don't understand at what age a person becomes a person. But that's don't quote me on that. But when I would talk with my students, so like college age students, and Steve, what you're describing, they would often come to me just wound up trying to decide what they should minor in college. And I would always be like, that doesn't matter. I thought it mattered. I fretted about it. And no one has ever asked me my minor in college. It doesn't matter. And I would tell them this, and they just thought I was refusing to give them advice. Like, because you don't have that perspective.
Yeah.
And I was like, you could take classes and just say you focused on this. You don't need to say the word. I mean, that's such a trivial example, but it is. I have seen where you just get, but I'm also wound up about, maybe every time I feel wound up about something insignificant, I'll be like, oh, I'm still very young. Look at me.
Yeah. I mean, it turns into a very simple answer to the question, why was childhood for most of us so idyllic? Because we weren't worrying about shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's too complicated, messy now. There's too much going on. There's like too many stressors, too many things poking at us. It's, modern life today is way more complicated than modern life for my parents 40 years ago. I mean, I am inundated with emails, texts, WhatsApp, fucking Facebook. It's like over and over. It's like, I can't do it. I can't answer the phone every time people call anymore. I can't respond to every text. I can't, it's beyond all of us to even catch up with our own lives.
Yeah.
So a couple of people are commenting about my comment about old age. As I said, I am quoting statistics. This is psychological research. These are statistics. Not everyone has that. I agree that Trump is certainly not showing any signs of this process. Some people, and this is also something that psychologists have demonstrated, is that some individual people get stuck at an early stage of their life. Like there are some people who never transfer from being an adolescent to a young adult, right? And then you have to transition from being a young adult to a fully functioning member of society. And that's the transition that if you're going to get stuck somewhere, that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah.
You know, like they're an adult, but they never fully transition to being a full adult. And we, like Jay and I, know people personally who are stuck in that stage. And it's like, they're fucking 20 years old. You know, they're 50 years old, but they're 20 years old. And Trump, I've read a lot of articles about how Trump is stuck in the 1980s in every way imaginable, including the way he thinks about everything. You know, he is still stuck because that was when he was in his heyday, really. And he just has been coasting since then. He's also a remarkably incurious person with no self-reflection whatsoever. So, you know, maturity is a feedback loop, and some people don't have that feedback loop, right? They just don't, like, they don't learn from their experiences. They're not incorporating this, you know, the experiences that make us more mature into their increasingly complicated way of thinking about things. And so they're just coasting at this earlier stage of mental development, and they just stay there, or it's extremely slow, you know, if they do make any progress.
It's almost like, Steve, what you're describing makes me think of like, it's like a skepticism towards your own life, where it's sort of, you're taking in the evidence like, oh, well, this was working and that wasn't working. And people seem to really get upset when I say this to them, you know,
maybe
like,
I shouldn't do that anymore.
And a lot of it about your own life.
Totally. It's metacognition about yourself. And as Jay was saying, it's also important, like who the people are in your life. That's like for me too, like the most important relationship I have in my life is with my wife, because she knows me better than anybody else. And she also has zero inhibition about telling me exactly what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
But it's such a powerfully useful thing to have in your life, to have that relation, your reality check kind of relationship. That doesn't mean that she's always 100% wrong, right? And then I'm not always 100% wrong. It's just more that, and I do the same thing for her. It's just that we are each other's sort of reality check. And at even just the process of resolving the difference in how we perceive something that happened or our relationship or whatever is a huge learning experience, you know? Like, and just the way we interact and way we resolve differences is completely different than it was at the beginning of our marriage. Like, I don't think we've gotten into a fight, you know, like the kinds of fights we had when we were in our 30s. For 30 years, like for 20 years, because, you know, we worked our shit out, and now we just resolve things so much more efficiently, you know?
The kind of clash that my relationship as well early on was just like, the fights were messy, not physically messy, but they were unhinged.
Well, what we learned was, and again, it helps that my wife is a therapist, you know, so she has a PhD in therapy and counseling.
Wow,
you know,
well done.
So I have like a built-in counselor but anyway, what was I going to say? What we found was that when we really had our heated arguments, it was always because we weren't arguing about the thing we were actually arguing about. You know what I mean? We were arguing about something on a superficial level, and there was absolutely no way we were going to resolve that disagreement, because we were really arguing about something deeper. And we were not resolving the deeper issue, and therefore that argument was never going to be resolved at the superficial level. So it seems like, you know, it was intractable until we realized, like, why are you so upset about this thing? You know, and it's because it's this deeper conflict. And then, so once we resolve the deeper conflict, we don't have the superficial arguments anymore.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
You know?
So is that something that we can apply to if you're talking to someone who doesn't trust science or doesn't believe experts, where you say, or even the partisan bickering, you know, in the US and in many other places, where you say, like, we're arguing about whether they're eating dogs, or we're arguing about whether the earth is flat, but what we're really arguing about is something much deeper.
100%. Absolutely. And I think successful politicians know that. They know what the angst of the public is, the time. Like, if Trump has any talent, that I think is his talent. Like a troll.
Yeah.
You know, or there are patients who are psychopaths, you know. that have this unbelievable ability to zoom in on somebody's weakness. Like, it's amazing. It's uncanny. The intuition they have for how to say just the right thing to piss you off.
Yeah.
It really is an amazing skill, like emotional skill
Like a
that they have.
radar.
It's
Yeah.
they have this radar for other people's vulnerabilities or other people's weak spots or their fears or their angst or whatever. And I think salespeople have the same kind of intuition that sort of helps them do their
Yes.
job. Con artists have that. And Trump is basically a con artist who understands that, oh, I could make people afraid of stuff, and what kind of stuff are people afraid of? They're afraid of people who look different, who are going to take their jobs. It's the same thing that's been going on for centuries, forever.
It's a very boring playbook.
Yeah, it is a very boring, tired playbook. But he's like, the time is ripe for that. And I just did a good and villain. The villain is the liberal elites, right?
Yeah.
And then just build that out. So you have the liberal elites who want to turn everybody gay and be communist and let in wide open borders, and they hate the country and they want to destroy you and they want to destroy everything about you and your life, right? So that's. Yeah, and it's effective. It is unfortunately effective, but people, there's the wedge issues and like the culture war issues. It's not really about that issue. Like I don't know really that people give a shit that much about trans people. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean they do, but I don't think is it really just the mere fact that somebody decides to identify as the other gender? Does that really get people that upset?
And like changing your life on a daily basis that much?
It really has zero, like literally zero effect on them. But they're emotionally, it's tied to, this is just a way to destroy your children or your way of life or your religion. Like, we're taking your country away from you. And this is just an example of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that deeper angst.
And
there's
a really good study, and this is maybe 10 or more years old, so I don't know how much it applies now, but a really good study of they kind of dug into this deeper question of fears about immigration in the Netherlands, and basically it boiled down to, the talking points are jobs and safety and this and that and whatever the latest, the economy. But you could kind of somehow, I don't remember the details of it, tease out that it was a fear about having to change your way of life. You're going to have to speak a different way. You're going to have to eat different food. You're going to have to talk to your neighbors differently. And that's scary to people. And that's pretty visceral. And you think humans in tribalism and, in-group, out-group, that was the core of our survival and still is in a way for a really long time, but it's getting recognized.
Which is why I think one of the reasons, there's multiple reasons. There's the different information ecosystems, et cetera. But this is also another reason why when people are arguing about an issue politically, it's unresolvable.
Exactly.
You're never going to resolve it at the superficial level.
Yeah, you're right.
Or the level of facts, right? Because the facts are not really what it's about.
Right.
If it was about facts, you wouldn't be arguing. Like, you wouldn't be having
a
disagreement. You could say, oh, look, and I've done that. I mean, a million times. I'm sure we all have, like, as skeptics. So the first thing you do is, let's find out what the facts are. And then it turns out the facts don't matter because they never mattered. That's not what the whole argument was ever about. It was about the emotional manipulation.
Right.
It's about what they fear. It's saying about their world, not the thing itself. And that's why. And now that people have basically been given permission, this is the fake, circling back to the fake news thing. The way I see it is that, when the facts don't align with your emotional narrative, it causes cognitive dissonance. And Trump basically came in and said, it just instantly wiped away all cognitive dissonance related to that. It's like, you can now comfortably ignore all facts that cause you even the slightest cognitive dissonance because it's all fake news.
Right.
You can now believe only those things which make you feel good, and which align completely with your ideology and your tribe and your side. And that's why people are so emotionally enwrapped and jubilant, at his rallies.
Right.
Because they're just, it's like, it's the absence. I would, hazard a guess that is 90% this absence of cognitive dissonance, that they're just free now just to believe only the things they absolutely want to believe.
Right.
And there's no burden to believe anything else.
In a way, it sounds nice.
That's That's all cults operate that way. It's like,
Yeah.
here's this, belief system that's just all designed to make you feel good. And
well, they're still responsible. They still are responsible.
I'm not saying that. Of course they are. They're adults.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're saying that, but I just thought that was important to add on to what you said. Like
they're not. In my opinion, they are not doing their due diligence as a citizen of a democracy.
That's right.
They're just. It feels good, and they're going for it without the due diligence, and that's a problem. And they're willing to ignore a lot of very serious things that nobody should ignore. Nobody who, with Trump's history and with the things that he says and the lying that he does, nobody like that should be given the reins of power. They're basically handing a child a gun.
That's right.
And then they're making all these excuses about why that was an okay thing to do, which they know are bullshit.
Right.
And it's so blatantly hypocritical. I mean, the worst are the politicians. I think the masses are, they're being manipulated, and we generally try not to blame the victim. But again, yes, they are responsible, but to some extent you could portray them as victim. The politicians who are supporting him
right.
They have no excuses because they know it's bullshit. They're saying things they know are wrong. They're not in the cult. They're just doing what they're doing for completely selfish reasons.
Right. And they're on the record saying they don't believe in him and they don't agree, and then they turn.
And then they flip on a dime when it's in their interest, and they're like, it's shameless. It's so blatantly, transparently shameless. They have nowhere to hide. They just don't give a shit because they've made a political calculation that, okay, yes, I'm going to be shamelessly hypocritical, like blatantly, obviously hypocritical, but apparently I won't pay that big of a political price for that, so I'm going to do it.
There seems to be none. A core tenet of political science, not tenet, but kind of working hypothesis and guiding theory of political science for a long time was that politicians are constrained by what they've said in the past. And therefore they're more careful when they speak. And it was called audience costs. And you generate audience costs if you say you're going to do one thing, like invade Iraq, and then you don't. And so Bush had to because he said he would. That's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. Totally.
Years ago, it was like the driving force in politics, as far as we could tell.
I know. And it's like, I don't know. I was just about to launch into getting into the details. I don't want, it's pointless at this point. The only thing that matters is that all of us just get people in our lives to vote.
Yeah.
Because the discussions don't work. I think everybody has a pretty good understanding of what's happening here.
Yeah. I said this on the live stream like last week or this week. Like, I no longer give a shit what the undecided voter thinks. I really don't. At this point, if you're undecided, that's on you. And nobody should expend any energy trying to convince you at this point. Further, from what I understand, those are the people who are least likely to vote.
Yeah.
So fuck them. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right now, we should be focusing on mobilizing the people who have already decided who they're going to vote for, but they need to get off their ass. Those are the people. Yeah.
I want to flag. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm telling you to talk.
Oh, you don't mean it. Well, then I will. I'm actually an undecided voter, and I wanted to know what you think. I'm very well. Here, let me say this. I was going to say I'm very decided. I am decided in many ways, but I want to flag something. I think it was Keith said in the chat that I really loved, which was that cognitive dissonance is the goal, and that's cool. Like if we could get people to embrace, because it is a bad feeling, but I need to be self-conscious. I need to be aware of myself that I get upset when I experience cognitive dissonance. I have many friends I disagree with politically. Most are closer to me than Trump followers, but they'll say things. They'll say, "Oh, you're probably wrong about that," or "Oh, mini tribalism is going on in the factions of the political circles I go into, and I should be more embracing of cognitive dissonance."
Definitely,
yeah. Cognitive dissonance is like a bright red light saying this is something you need to resolve. This
exactly.
There's an don't hide from it. This is like pointing out a conflict in your model of reality.
And I also have this other horrible thing in my head, which is my need for justice. And Steve's helped me a lot with this.
Yeah.
I had to basically I had to convince myself, and basically like CBT style, cognitive behavioral therapy, just talk myself into the idea that it's never going to happen, because there is no ultimate justice. The people
there is no ultimate justice.
No, right? The people that are helping Trump himself, his wife, his family, the people that are going to vote for him, there's just never going to be a real reckoning. And
there's nothing that could happen now.
Yeah.
That would be, you know what I mean? And even the things that should happen are not going to happen.
Yeah. So we
But,
just have to be
yeah.
okay with it because life is going to go on, and whatever, I keep like fantasizing that everything is going to go the right way. If things do go the right way, it's still going to be an effed up world. Those people are still going to be effed up. And
John Stewart, I think, made a good observation about what you're talking about. He's like, we have to get out of this mindset like that the next election is it.
Yep.
The bottom line is this is a democracy and this is endless. It's just like science, right? It's not like we're never done. We're never going to be done with democracy, with this conflict over what we should be doing and how we should be running affairs and whatever. This is a constant, endless struggle. And just you have to think about it that way.
Yeah.
We're always playing the endless long game. And so it's never over. It's not like if we lose in November, it's over. It's just you pick yourself up and you go on for the next one. Then it's the midterms. Then it's the next election.
I know, but this one, there is something very special about this election.
I mean, yes, it could be an inflection point, but it's not over.
No, it's not. It's not over. It's not like when Thulsa Doom's head gets cut off and everybody throws the candles in the fountain.
Yeah,
that's from the movie Conan. You should watch it, Andrea.
I have a list of movies I learn about every time I'm on the live stream.
Because even when Trump is fully taken down, the damage is done and it's freaking deep.
The damage is done and his voters will still be there.
Yeah.
And all of his enablers will still be there. And all the cultural things that led us to this point will still be there.
And Marjorie Taylor Greene and JD Vance and all these other people.
Yeah, it's not like Thanos snapping his fingers and they're all going to like turn into dust. Did you get that one, Andrea?
That I knew. I vaguely. I think everyone dies. And
I just wanted to throw another one at you.
Yeah, please keep it coming. And then watch me be like, oh yes, of course, I get that.
Yeah.
And and the thing is, the whole Trump phenomenon has, shocked me out of a complacency I didn't realize I was in. But prior to that, I thought democracy, especially American democracy, was much more stable than it is. I had this belief, like a lot of people did, including a lot of like the intellectual, politicians who I read, that there are guardrails and there's a system and it's institutionalized and it will constrain the damage that any one person can do. Right. And basically what we learned is that democracy is 90% a wink and a handshake.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
Yep.
It's sort of like money has value because we all agree it does.
Exactly.
Like democracy exists because
it's like Paris Hilton. She's famous for being famous. That's it. Democracy works because we believe democracy works.
Yeah.
And the moment we stop believing it, it's like it doesn't work instantly.
Yeah.
There's no institutions do not keep that from happening. It's like the forest being green thing again. It's like the forest is only green when every tree is green, right? We only have a democracy when we all agree we have a democracy.
And we don't have that anymore, Steve.
Yeah.
We all don't agree.
I know. All the skepticism
it's
and
fragile.
everything with cognitive dissonance. It's like it just feels like because both sides, again, not to harp on the U.S. all day long, but both sides think that they're losing democracy to the other.
Yeah,
and it's just I just get so stressed that we don't have a shared set of reality that we're building.
I know.
From.
It's
like
historically, like voter turnout in the U.S. has been low.
Yeah,
and people usually criticize that. But I've heard that or read an analysis that's a good thing in that the low turnout means that everyone recognizes the stakes are low.
Yeah.
That yes, you like if you lost the presidential election, in the 80s or even the 90s, it wasn't the end of the world. All right, the policies would start to drift in the other direction for a few years, but nothing major would happen. Your life would probably not change. And then you have another opportunity to bring it back the other way. And it will swing back and forth and nobody cared. Right. But now it really feels different. It feels existential for everybody on both sides, which is ridiculous. But that's, but that's the way it is. And the stakes are higher, but that's why I do think we have to say, yes, the stakes are higher, but there will be a tomorrow. Like we will pick ourselves up and we will start fighting the next fight the day after the election or whenever the election is decided.
Well, good reminder, Steve, because I do find myself thinking like someone was trying to book me for a comedy show on November 8th. And I was like, I don't even know. Day after tomorrow.
How could you prepare for that?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Like my calendar is empty, but the world might be. Like
you're making a lot of assumptions there, pal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
November 8th.
Yeah.
It's like, I know. I know, and
democracy.
Steve had to remind me. Don't think you're going to know who won that night or even
Of
the
course.
morning
Yeah.
after.
Of course.
This is going to be
It's going to be
a fucking clown car of an election.
Yeah.
Because so many shenanigans are going to be pulled. So many screwed up shit things that a lot of us don't even know are on deck.
Unless it's a landslide one way or the other for
Yeah, it's a
reasons that
landslide,
who
but
knows. It could
Yeah.
be.
I don't know.
even still. So
But that's the other problem, and someone in the chat said this too, which is, the Democrats have won the popular vote forever. And
Yeah.
it's literally the game is that you need to have 3 points to the Republican 1 to win. Like it has to be a landslide.
yeah.
But yeah. I was gonna say something slightly to the aside, but now I've forgotten it. Someone
Well, I'll tell you something, Andrea.
please.
I like working
thought
with
of it,
you.
yeah.
You're nice.
I
You're
like
a good
working with
person.
Yeah.
You're fun. You're funny. You're talented, and we got Nauticon coming up.
Yeah, we do.
We
It's
do.
very
I'm very
fun.
excited.
Yes.
Did you have a good time last time?
I had a fabulous time. It was so much fun, and it was just so cool to hang out with everyone, to get to know people that I've seen in chats and online and stuff like that. And your audience is always so nice. It was so fun. It was so just playful. That's something to look forward to in 2025. I'll tell you that.
Definitely. And I thought of a word that fits perfectly. It was genuine. You know, everything just was real. Like everybody was cool. Everybody had a great time. There was no bullshit. There was just none of the typical human shenanigans at this conference. Like everybody just wanted to have fun, and we had fun
and like enjoy each other's presence. It was great.
Definitely.
Wholesome.
Yeah. So if you're interested, I mean, I'm saying this because I want people to come to the next one. This is Nauticon 2025. The theme is it's the Skeptical Mystery Tour.
Mm-hmm.
It is the Skeptical Mystery Tour.
I love that graphic. I love the name.
Yeah,
tickets are available for everyone now.
Yes, everybody can buy tickets now. We let patrons get first dibs. So anyway, there's the button right there. You go to nauticoncon.com. Every time I say it, I
what
laugh.
moron got us that URL?
Sounds like some idiot's luggage. Yeah,
I did not know that was the website. That's amazing.
Yes, Nauticon.
Oh my goodness.
I had to pause.
Perfect.
It's not
Conference.
concon.com.
Not a conference convention.
That's like the lawblog.lawblog. Whatever from the rest of development. There it is. Bob blah blah.
Or people whose email address is johnsmith@johnsmith.com.
Yeah,
right.
If anybody was trying to buy VIP tickets, I noticed I got some errors when people were trying to buy it. It's fixed now, so it was like 2 people I think that might have been trying. So go back and you can get them. They're still available. There's only 20, 30 seats left for VIP.
They're going to go.
They're
going quick, so get them while they're hot.
We limit the number because it wouldn't
Otherwise
be a VIP.
It's not very V.
Yeah.
It's just IP.
P.
It's just P.
It's just P.
Yeah.
It is P at that point.
Just P. Which is the rest of nauticon.com/con.
Nauticoncon.com, Andrea.
I love it.
Andrea, can you answer one question definitively forever for us, since you are a
Lord.
political
Always.
scientist?
Yes.
Because this always comes up. Somebody in the chat said that America is not a democracy; it's a republic, and which I think is nonsense. It's a democracy. It's a democratic republic. It is a constitutional democratic republic. We vote for shit. It's a democracy.
Yes.
It's not a pure 100% democracy. Because obviously, because the electoral college and representatives.
No, it's a pretty fucked up democracy.
But it needs a lot of tending, needs a lot of work and tweaking. But these are not mutually exclusive concepts, right? I mean, just in terms of technically, in terms of the way what it means.
Correct.
We're a democracy, right? Even though we're also a republic and a constitutional republic.
Yes. So there are. I'm so glad you asked. Clear your calendars for the next 12 hours because I have thoughts to share on this. Is measuring democracy is one of my favorite things in the world. And I'm going to, so Steve and I did an interview the other day for a podcast I'm doing called Behind the Data. And there's another episode coming up with someone whose job it is to measure democracy. And so you can think about democracy in 2 ways. One is a spectrum from, we have elections, and maybe you think freedom of speech, freedom of all the stuff that we kind of managed to put in the category of democracy. There are lots and lots of different kinds of democracies.
Yes.
So constitutional, republic, monarch, whatever, but they're still all democracies with varieties of form. And then there's a spectrum to non-democracies or autocracies.
Right.
And every measure you look at, there's The Economist has it, a place called Polity 5, VDEM, which is the person I'm interviewing, Freedom House, whatever metric you study it on, it's not perfect. It's evolving. The measures change. the US comes out as a democracy every time.
Mm-hmm.
One tiny caveat on that is that most of these studies are led by Americans who probably have and had incentives to think of ourselves as democracy and maybe are defining democracy in the image of the US. So you might steer yourself towards other measures that are built by scholars who are not in the United States. But even then, the US is a democracy by every measure of the word democracy, whether it's institutional, the rules we have, cultural, behavioral. It shows up as a democracy everywhere. Yes, there are different types of democracies, but I as the evidence that as social science evidence exists, the measures of democracy are among the most persuasive, and every measure points to that. So put that to bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can say definitively until another data set comes out. But every
wait.
piece of
Yeah,
evidence
wait.
we've got,
Yeah.
We'll clip this and
To
play
be
it for
continued.
everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody,
and I'm very biased. It's true. Bring on the cognitive dissonance.
there are very few weekends left in the United States where we can definitely say things are going to be okay for the next few weeks. So enjoy them. And I'm telling you now, go out this weekend and have some fun. Watch the traffic lights work. See food on the shelves in the stores. These are things that you might not have in a couple of months. So enjoy them.
Jay, what happened to all the inspirational? We're gonna find a way and pick up. Yeah. Oh, someone was asking for dog. Yeah. Here's Iris.
Yes.
Iris.
Dog.
Hey,
hi,
Pops.
Iris. You want to say hi? She can tell when I'm winding up a Zoom. My tone of voice changes.
That's adorable.
Iris. Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone, please, if you're in the United States, encourage everybody to vote. It's very important. It doesn't take a lot of time and effort. Make some phone calls, get your friends to go. That guy, who's your friend that probably won't vote because he's lazy. Just give him a ride, buy him a pizza, and make it happen.
Yeah.
Because every vote counts. The ultimate number, even if I want to win, but I want to win with some margin there, like Steve said, that's going to make it, more legit,
tastier,
and harder to fight. So that's important. And Andrea, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And particularly,
always a pleasure.
Make sure you're talking to anyone who's a new voter and may not be registered or is an inactive voter. Voter registration deadlines are coming up in the US. So that's when if you don't register in the next couple of weeks, depending on where you are.
Some states have day of registration, but you got to know, not all states do. So you have to know in your state. When
a dozen or so. And North Dakota doesn't have any registration at all, which is great. So
how does that work?
There. Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to go walk my dog, to whoever in the chat said I should walk my dog.
So when is that episode coming out again, or your next event?
So my next event, I have one about polls, if you haven't heard enough of it, on Sunday, and it's live streaming, and you can go to electionshow.vote to catch the live stream or come in person if you're in the New York City area. And we have a few more between now and the election on misinformation, how to change someone's mind, and then a pre-election kind of catch-all, what are we thinking about and freaking out about.
Yeah.
And the Behind the Data podcast, some of you who listened to the main episode went and checked out my podcast pilot, so thank you. BehindTheDataShow.com, it's coming soon, but I will have an interview with Steve in season 1 about the kind of data that doctors are collecting when they see their patients and how they make sense of it.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
If you ever need data on meatballs or bread making,
you're next.
Invite me.
I need data on both. Yes.
We'll talk about it. All right, guys. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend. We'll
see you all.
See you all soon. And
thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Ian.
We'll be talking soon about Nauticon. Steve, you and I got to call each other right now.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Skeptic's Guide to the Universe is produced by SGU Productions, dedicated to promoting science and critical thinking. For more information, visit us at theskepticsguide.org. Send your questions to info@theskepticsguide.org. And if you would like to support the show and all the work that we do, go to patreon.com/skepticsguide and consider becoming a patron and becoming part of the SGU community. Our listeners and supporters are what make SGU possible.
Hi. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for listening to this week's show, and the show that's coming out tomorrow. Thanks for also listening to that. If you're coming in Nauticon, buy those tickets. Any other questions before we skedaddle? Any other secret things you want? Only watermelon. Yes, only watermelons. Will there be a watermelon smashing segment or a watermelon gifting segment on the at Nauticon 2025? I don't know. We'll see. We'll keep it. Other secret things. The website seems to be down. Andrea's behind. Okay, I'll get the Andrea show link and I'll probably post it somewhere. Certainly on Patreon, maybe on some other locations if anybody wants that. Andrea does know, but I think she dipped. Did your VIP order go through? Mark, I will look that up. Post haste. Did you just do it just now, or was it when you first would? Because if anybody was trying to get the VIP, it said like service not available. It for some reason the counting maxed out, so I just fixed it. So you should be good if you just order, and you can just order the VIP without the ticket. You select already have passes, and you can do that, and so you'll have both. A couple of people had tickets with $0, and I don't know how they did that, so I have to email them. No Gallagher. Yeah, I know. Well, Gallagher is no more. Did it on Sunday. Okay. I will look up your order and make sure that you actually have it. Any other things? Ian, what was happening with the glitching screen on with? So I think it was we use a USB capture card, specifically a Magewell, which is usually pretty good, but I think the USB port or the cable, something was loose in there. So I had to keep unplugging, flicking it around, or it might have been the HDMI cable. I just unplugged and plugged back in, hoping for the best, and it seemed to solve itself in that moment. So Mark, let's see if you got the thing with the thing. Let me click on it. It says yes and yes and yes and yes. Yes, you're confirmed for VIP for both. So you're good, Mark. Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend. Canadian Thanksgiving. Are there special meal prep for Canadian Thanksgiving as different than American Thanksgiving? Is there other popular dishes that we should know about? Sugar coated maple leaves or something like a boot? Okay. I think we got it. Did you see? Good question. Northern Lights in CT. I don't think I did. I took a picture of the sky and it was like blue, bluey purple. I mean, but I think that might have just been light pollution. You can't see it with the naked eye, or you couldn't. So taking it with the phone, you can kind of see it. I'm not sure, honestly. I'm American. There you go. Thank you so much for that. Less yams in Canadian Thanksgiving. Okay, sweet potatoes. Lobster was the first. Oh, so you're saying lobster rolls is a Canadian, or sorry, Thanksgiving tradition? I'm okay with that. Does anyone listen to Jordan is my lawyer? Unbiased? I don't know. They were amazing. Oh, wow. Minnesota, Northern Lights. So you could see it with the naked eye. That is something that it's hard to predict, obviously. But if there is a way to predict, that might be an event. And if anybody knows how to a degree, that might be an event that the SGU would certainly be interested in getting something together. If there's like a season for it, or if it's like whatever. I don't know honestly anything about it. You can see them with a naked eye, but phone is better. Yeah. That might be something where we're like, okay, we got to go north to see these, and we will schedule an SGU event around it. Pilot episode. Oh, the pilot episode is linked in the podcast channel in Patreon if anybody wants to check it out. Family saw it on Long Island. Very cool. Naked eye in the middle of Ohio last night. Oh, wow. Very faint. Yeah, I think the light pollution around me was too much, unfortunately. Just ordered up some Nauticon tickets. Very good. Thank you for doing that. Silak, I hope the question was answered. You asked a question to Andrea. I think that's it. You could see them as far north as Sydney. What? Dancing. You have about 3 days to get to where they're going to be. Yeah, it's so quick. Interesting. Well, maybe we could figure out like, it'll be around here, and then we'll be like, hopefully, we see the verse, and then no, it's coming in a few days. Gotcha. Okay, it could be like a quick meet and greet, maybe not like a formal event. Just let's go to the Central Park or something. You know what I mean? Like something where we can all cavort. Cavort, is that the right word? Anyway, thank you for being here and listening to an extended after hours show, whatever you want to call it. Extreme elimination show challenge. I have to, that's my children jumping. I need to go figure out what that was. And I will see y'all next time. I'm gonna try to get Bob to commit to a stream at the Haunt, and maybe we can do that next weekend. And I will work on that, and force Jay and Steve to like make him do it, hopefully. But we shall see. Have a good weekend. You also have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for being here. Ta-ta.